I wanted to start with an opening line that we all build internet sites, but they obviously don't. So this part of the audience builds internet sites, and when we do, we want one thing, and we want them to end up high in internet search, right? And internet search engines basically strive to keep the fight fair, and they disallow hacks. But there are quite a few things that you can do with your site to increase its rank in internet search. So when we build intranets in SharePoint, what we do is we build intranet, we apply the branding, and then it's done. But would this approach work for an internet site? So let's take a look what you will get if you use exactly the same approach on an internet site. So when we build sites, we take a look at what we see, right? So we focus on this, and we strive that the website is attractive. So we look at this, or we look at this. When internet search comes to crawl the site, it does not see this. What it sees is this. It is the source. So internet search uses the source of your site, the HTML, to crawl it to get the contents of your site. And just as it's attractive, or just as it's essential to have the visual part of your site attractive, it's essential to have the code clean and readable for internet search if you care for SEO, if you want your internet site to end up high in internet search. Right? So as you can imagine, that's cluttered. There's a lot of stuff there that's not really a part of your site. I mean, just look at all that. That's what you get if you use the out-of-the-box approach. And that's like 601 lines of code. So what if you could build a site that looks like this? So compare that code. Let me just grab this and then get the other one. That should be somewhere here. Pull it to right. I have to get that one back. There you go. So here, if we compare that, that's 148 lines. So that's a massive amount of HTML that is not a part of your site. And that's really essential for search. So what if we were able to build the site the way you see it on the left and not on the right? So let me tell you why that's essential. Well, the first part is that it bloats the size of your site, right? Performance is, since I guess a year or two, an important piece of the search ranking, right? So you want to ensure that your site is fast. Another thing is that the easier it is for search to parse the HTML of your site to get the contents, the higher the odds that it will understand the contents of your site, right? So with that, it will make it easier for search to understand your site, and with that, help you increase the ranking of it in search. So how do you achieve this? How do you build a site that is a SharePoint site that uses everything that's available in a box and still has the really clean HTML? So the way you could do it, well, you could have done that in Moz in SharePoint 2010 and even now. And the thing is that in the past, that was a challenge. There was really a lot of work you had to go through because it's not how SharePoint is built out of the box. Out of the box is just what you see is what you get. And that was, in a way, great for editing back then. But now with all the phones and tablets, there's no really what you see is what you get editing experience. If you look, for example, at Sway, do you know Sway? The latest Microsoft tool for rich publishing things. The experience that they use there is because they want you to be able to create stuff that looks great on phones, tablets, laptops, anything. And they are aware that they cannot squeeze all of that into an editing experience. So instead, they use an approach that they call what you get is what you want. So you won't have the what you see is what you get experience for authoring, but they ensure that your thing that you build with Sway is going to look right. So how about we use exactly the same approach in SharePoint? So if I log into this site, what you will get is, don't be shocked, this. This is exactly the same site if you log into it. So this is the authoring site. And it's just unbranded, except for the purple, publishing site. And in here, we can optimize that for authoring. So for example, if I went to a page, and if I picked one page that is there, and let me edit it, I can include a lot of stuff that makes sense in editing mode. So like additional tools, description, tips, previews, like how this page will look like in search. I can have all of that because that's the authoring part. And it's separate from how this page is being shown publicly. So if I cancel editing and if I previewed that page, even though it's still not live, I can do a little trick here, and I can see how it's going to look like online. And as I said, you could achieve exactly the same in Moz in 2010. It was only quite a hassle. In SharePoint 2013, they introduced a new thing called device channels. And initially, the idea was to allow you to optimize or to build separate experience for tablets and phones and anything. I abused that. They laughed. So I abused that engine to separate publishing from authoring. So what I do is I created two device channels in this site. Let me go back to our Mavention.com site, go to Site Settings, Device Channels, and here are two of them. And if you look at the master pages associated with them, there are two of them as well. So there's one for authoring, and there's one for anonymous. And if I show you what those are, so the authoring one is just a copy. Can you see the code in the back? Good. Let me just squeeze that. Yeah. So if you look at that, that's just out of the box Seattle master page with everything in it, a ribbon, everything there. But if you look at the anonymous one, it's really small. It's really short. So we have the web part manager here because we want to be able to use the web parts, but there is no ribbon. There is no page-wide form tag. And this allows us, this really easy trick allows us to have really great HTML without paying the highest price, right? Because we can still use a lot of the stuff that's available out of the box. We cannot use it all, right? Because if there's no page-wide form tag, one of the things that you won't be, for example, able to do is to use web parts or forms on your page. You would need to do that differently. You would have to have an API that you would call. You would not be able to use Postback on your site. But is it bad? I mean, that idea of ASP.NET Forms is pretty old, to say the least. So in any way, if you want to build a dynamic site with forms interaction, you would probably do it differently anyway, right? So you can do this. So that's one. Another one, because you are still not there. So with this basic, you can have a really great start. The next part is, for example, a layout. So as you have seen, we had different rendering and content for the authoring mode and preview mode or anonymous mode. So we did it with another control that's available out of the box, which is called mobile panel. And those guys are actually allow you to specify a channel, and the contents of that will be shown only when that channel is active. So here we have the stuff for the authoring mode. And then if we go to the bottom, so that's the head. If we go to contents, there's the whole editing view that you have seen with the title, description, page content, natural language, SEO, properties, preview, and such. And then here is actually the content of the page as it's shown for anonymous. So this part is really short and really clean. One more thing that you have to take into account is the fact that you want to have as much control of the HTML as you can. Why? Well, SEO is just one thing. But if you build an internet site, you probably know how much pain it is to build a site that works great in Chrome, in Firefox, IE 10, IE 9, IE 11, IE 8, IE anything. So that's just a lot of work. It's just a separate skill set that we, as developers in this space, probably do not have. And there are folks who specialize only in that, building HTML that works everywhere. As soon as we change anything in that HTML, it's our job to fix it. And we know already that we are not really the masters in it, right? So what if we could take into account approach that we take a static HTML prototype of a site and we strive to build that in SharePoint to have exactly the same output HTML as we had on input, given by a person who knows exactly how HTML works across browsers. How do you like the idea? So we could do that, and there is one essential part that you have to do by yourself, and it's the fact that you have to get control of rendering. And one way to do that, because you don't want every single site to look exactly the same. So what's leading is the HTML built for that site. So with that, you have to have the ability to template the rendering. So just as you could do that with XSLT in SharePoint 2010, and you can do that now, you still need to be able to do that in pages of your site. So here is, for example, control that I built that renders a menu. And what it allows me to do is to tell, like, for example, OK, so how do I want to start a header? How do I want to render a node? How do I render a link? And that is UL, li, a. And if I go to the browser and show you the source, you will see all of that back. So you will see that the navigation of the site is here, and it's exactly that code. There's nothing else. There's not a single attribute or class or anything that I did not put there myself. So only with that approach, you will be able to achieve that result. So that's one. Another thing that I'd like to point out is the fact that if you care for the SEO, and the great thing is that SharePoint 2013 offers you a lot of stuff for optimizing your site for search. But if you want to use that, you have to use search. So stuff like friendly URLs, Xml Sitemap, those two, for example, work only with search. And if you would, for example, build a rollup of news, like I have here, let me show you that. Let me log into my VM. So here I created 2 press releases in my site, and here I have a rollup. So you could build that by search, right? There's a web part available for that, and that's easy. And you can control the rendering using the display templates, and those are built in JavaScript. And the problem with that is that the content of that are not embedded in the source. In a way, JavaScript is not rendered, right? So internet search, when it crawls the site, it won't see this because that's dynamic. And SharePoint knows that. So they thought of a little trick, like, OK, whenever there is an overview of content or a rollup, and we see that it's search coming to our site, we will do a little trick. So here I have a plugin that allows me to pretend I am Googlebot 2.1, and if I refresh this site, what I will see is exactly how this site will look to search. Sorry. So that's not really this site, isn't it? And the way this works is that the web part that's on the page sees that the page is being visited by Googlebot, and instead of JavaScript, it switches back to XSLT. So it will use server-side rendering to render the content in a way that it's embedded, that it's a part of the page, and it will be shown to search. So search will be able to access it. The problem with that is that's not your HTML. This is a table. What we had tiles here are divs, and those are H2s. So that's not exactly the same. So with that, you lose the meaning of the content of this page. And there is a way to change this, because you can control the XSLT, but the thing is, you would have to build it twice. JavaScript one, and then the one here. So why do it twice? Why not use server-side rendering only? Another thing important to know is the fact that whenever you use the rendering, the JavaScript-based rendering, the raw data is embedded in a page. So here we see, for example, two pages that I built, and for each one we have title and we have author. And that's a known user because he has to authenticate to create a page, so we just include display name here. However, if you view the source, what you will discover is the fact that it's more than a name. In fact, here you can see the whole account name. So imagine showing that on your internet site, including your internal AD account names in a source code of your site. Security officers would not appreciate it, to say the least. If you would render that rollup in XSLT, you would be able to control that server side and output only display name to the HTML. Right? So that's another thing to take into account. So with that, now that we have the basics, in place, I created for you a menu that you can choose from, and I'd like to hear from you what you would like to see. Friendly URLs, yeah. Awesome. So one of the new abilities that we have in SharePoint 2013 is to create pages with friendly URLs, meaning that there is no pages part in URL and there is no extension. And this is great, not only for SEO, but also for the fact if you migrate your site from another CMS that does not have pages.aspx in URLs, it will save you a lot of effort because you won't have to change those URLs. So the way this works, it's backed by MMS. So here in the settings of your site, you can go to Site Settings, you can go to Navigation, and here you can choose whether you want to have Manage Nav based on terms or Structural Nav. So that's just the same way we had it in MOS and 2010. So if you choose for the Manage Nav, you will get friendly URLs, and for every page that you create, a term will be created in MMS. So here, if we go to Term Store Management, you will have a term set for your site, and then there will be the whole tree of your site modeled here in MMS. For every term, you will be able to associate it with URL, which is here, and physical page in your site. So with that, if you look at that, even though that I have here a tree, so there is the level 1 and level 2, if I go to the contents of the site contents, and pages, you will see that all of them are here. So physically, this site is flat. From the URL point of view, it has the whole tree. So that's a great thing, because that allows you to not only optimize the URLs, because URL of your site or your page can be different than its name, but also if you move the page or rename the page, you can still have exactly the same URL. So this saves a lot of effort. And consequence of this is, as soon as you turn on Manage Nav, you have to use search for rollups. If you don't, what you will get is this. So this is the SharePoint 2010, or that was even in MOS, content query web part that we used back then to build rollups. If you do this, what you will get is physical URL of that page. Can you see the URL at the bottom? That's pages ASPX. Content query does not know about friendly URLs. So you have to switch to search. And that means not only things for SEO, but also for the farm. Your farm has to be scaled to support search. So you have to know that up front. So that's one. And then as soon as you go to search, you have to do everything that I told you about, meaning you have to ensure for the rendering, you have to know about the accounts, not including personal stuff in a source. So there's a lot of work that is consequence of the fact that you will switch to friendly URLs. Does that make sense? Awesome. Next.
You don't have anything on multilingual capability.
Multilingual, what would you like to know about multi? There we go. We can go a la carte. What would you like to know?
Variations, using variations and the managed metadata, it doesn't support the language conversion for the menu, right?
So variations do not support language conversion for the menu. That's correct. And the MMS has no support for that as well.
Any hack that can be applied to make it work, or do you have to go the custom route to build your own?
You would have to do it by yourself. And if you would like to, so what would you like to achieve exactly?
I actually have an intranet to migrate to SharePoint from another CMS system, and they're asking us to do it in English and French.
Right.
So the first thought to my mind was we can use variations out of the box and machine translator to help with the translation and the managed metadata menu and URL friendly URLs in this manner. But when I tried for a proof of concept, it just didn't. Even if I have the language in the managed metadata for the term for it in the language option, it did not in the French site. It wouldn't show that term.
Right.
Menu.
So let me show you what we've done on our site, and you might see whether that would work for you or not. So our site is in US English and in Dutch. And the way we've done that is we have the mavention.com in English. I don't want to see HTTPS, I want to see HTTP. I want to be anonymous. There you go, so that's the English one. And then we have Mavention NL, which is in Dutch. So we include the language as domain name. And you can do that way, so you could have English and .fr for French. And the way we do that is we use cross-site publishing on our site. So if we go to the authoring site, there it is. We use the out-of-the-box variations. So we have variations here, and then with search, we move the English part to the .com site and Dutch to the .nl site. So all of them, that is done by search. But we go even step beyond that, because one thing that we do is we change the name, translate a URL. So for example, if you would see this press release, I'm not sure if that's already translated or not. Let me just check that. No, it's not. So let me do this one. So that if you look at the URL, it's all in English, because that's exactly what you would expect on an English site. However, if you go to the same page on the Dutch site, it's all in Dutch. So the one thing that so this is great for SEO, right? Because you have exactly the language that people type in. Challenge with that is, so one of the things that we have on our site is the ability to switch, right? So here we are on the .com site, and then we offer you ability to switch to the same page on the English side, Dutch side. So, but if you change the whole URL, how do you know where to switch to? Exactly. So it took us a while to figure out, and eventually what we've done is, let me just pick one. That doesn't really matter. So next to the URL, which is slug, so we call this slug, and that's the page part of URL. So that's the last part after the slash. Okay. So that's one, and that's translated. But then in order to be able to switch, we have another one called variation key. And that's exactly the same for each language. So we use that to find the same page in another language. We use that key. And it can be anything, as long as it's the same for every page across languages.
Is this variation key, where are you storing the actual values? Is this in a resource file?
This is a page, so we just type it. So whenever we edit a page, we can just edit this text. So that's just a property of the page that we edit. Okay. So it's just a part of the page, and with that it is indexed. So it is picked up by search, and we can use it as query to find the same page in another language. Yes, yes, because it has to, it knows where on the page it is, so it knows the variation key, and it knows that it has to go to another site. So based on those two, it is able to find the same page for another site.
Are you doing any kind of HTTP redirects, putting it in the file on the back end for these kind of URLs, or you are actually using it as a handler or something?
For what?
Redirects for, say, page name is different and you're putting a different URL in there.
Mm-hmm.
Using a low-level kind of HTTP redirect module and setting keys in there, or is it or your own custom code which is doing all the redirects?
So let me just check if I understand it correctly. The question is whether we use custom stuff for redirects of, in our site.
When I put a friendly name,
Uh-huh.
Oh,
yes, so that's the new thing available out of the box in SharePoint. It has the new virtual page provider. So it's all done out of the box. You don't have to do anything about that. That just works. So as soon as you choose Manage Nav, it's just going to work on its own. You don't have to do anything.
Okay, just because you're using Manage Nav, that's what
Yes, yes, that does the trick. That was good. Which part would you like to see?
Any blog that you've seen, how this variations is getting cross-published?
Yeah, so we have a blog post specifically on that on our site. If you look at, if you search for variations, you should get that. If you don't, ping me. Mobile devices and SEO, very, very up-to-date topic. So whenever you want to optimize your site for phones, you have basically 3 options, I guess. Well, 4. You can do nothing at all. Just leave the site. I mean, that's an option. It's probably not the one you're after, but it's an option. You could build an app so that your app supports certain part of your site, like, for example, to register for an event. You can build mobile site, which would be like and that site would be optimized only for phones. And the 4th one is responsive site. So you would, and that's exactly what we have on our site. So let me just show that in case you don't know what I'm talking about. Is that the site itself adapts by itself at the amount of space that it has on a screen, right? So it's small, and then it grows and grows and grows and grows, right? So you can do that. Each of those also has a consequence in terms of effort. cost, but also SEO. So if you don't do anything at all, that's going to hurt you, because Google, particularly recently, did some really additional work to ensure that whenever you search on a phone, mobile friendly sites will be shown first. And they have additional checks. Like, I guess that was 2 weeks ago. They sent a lot of emails like, your site is not optimized, or your site is optimal. There you go. Yeah, so they sent you, they are able to do a lot of checks on your site to ensure that your site is optimal. Because eventually, if they wouldn't do that, it would hurt them. Because they want to be the place you go to whenever you search. And if you're on a phone, you want to be able to do that quickly. Right? So they want to ensure that the results that they give you, that those are useful. So not doing anything is not really an option. Second one was building an app. Well, you could build an app, but that's expensive, and you would have to build an app for every phone that is out there. So you would have to have one for iOS, Android, Windows Phone, and that might not be the best idea if the only thing that you want to do is to make a website available on a phone. I mean, the app is great for scenarios, but not for like this, like if you want to show like news or blogs. Plus, everyone would have to install an app. And if they just want to see stuff, they are not going to do it. So that's not really an option either. Another one is mobile site. So if you would do that, that would mean that you would have a brand new site with its own URL. As we know, in terms of search is really strict about duplicate content, right? If it sees two sites, there is a risk that one will be ranked more, the other less, because it would see like, yeah, that's the same. And there is no control. So if you don't do anything about it, it will be random, or it can be random, and the worst case, your site will be banned. So there will be like, yeah, we have those two sites and they are the same, so it's bad. So with that, if you would like to have that to work, you would have to basically tell for every single page in your mobile site what's the equivalent of that pages on your main site. And if you choose not to push every site or every page from your main site to your mobile site, you would have to find a way to do that efficiently, because there would be a lot of work if you would have to, for every single page, say, okay, that page, canonical URL, as it's called, is this. So you would have to do that. And that's just a lot of work. And if your site is not only in English but also in French, you would have to do it twice. And if there is more, there you go. So that's why Google said that, and that was, I guess, already in 2012, that they recommend you use responsive, because it's very easy for them as it is for us, because the only thing that they need to do is to crawl your site once, and it works for everybody. No matter if you search on a phone or not, the hit that you will get will work, because everyone will be able to access the page on everything. Right? So they recommend it, and it's the easiest way to do it, because you build one site that just scales. And it's important that whenever you build a new site, you know it up front, because doing responsive afterwards, it's just Band-Aids, a lot of Band-Aids. Yeah. So so the best way to do it is to do it up front, to at least know it, that you want to build responsive site, because then you can have there are a lot of tools that can assist you with building such as a site, right? So it's essential that you plan for your site and you know it up front whether you want to have responsive site or not. Back to the menu. Yeah. HTTP versus HTTPS. That's another big change. I guess that was half a year ago about. So whenever you build a site, there might be a part of the site that you would like to make available over HTTPS. Because there is a form, login form, there is some kind of form that you can send, and that should be safe, right? So HTTPS. If you do that, so the way that works in SharePoint is, that's IIS. So you would either have separate zone, or you would have two SP site URLs associated with your site. So the whole site would be available on HTTP or HTTPS, and at some point you would just switch from HTTP over to HTTPS. Right? That's the way it would work. From SEO point of view, your site is available on two URLs. Basically, exactly the same as you would build two sites. So there are a couple of things that you can do to work around it. So the one is, out of the box, SharePoint 2013 contains the canonical URL tag. Unfortunately, it works in a way. For this part, it doesn't work, because the protocol part and the host part adapts to your site. So if you access your site over HTTP, canonical URL will be HTTP. If you access it over HTTPS, it's going to be that. So it's not really canonical. Chameleon, I would say. So that's one. Another one is, you could build canonical URL by yourself, right? So you would build your own control that's responsible for rendering canonical URL, and then you would say which protocol and domain name is leading, right? So you would say that even though you can access this page over HTTPS, dear search, I would love if you index that over HTTP, right? So that's one. But interesting part is that about half a year ago, Google included security as a part of their metrics. And they think that secure sites are better than unsecure sites. Who agrees with that? We have a few of you. That's OK. On the edge. Yeah, so basically what they say is they suggest or they advise us to build our sites over HTTPS even if there is no need, just to be safe, just to be secure, and whenever you want to add a form, you can just do it, and that's going to be fine because all of your site is HTTPS already. So with that, they solved a problem that we have in SharePoint, because they basically say, make your site available over HTTPS, and that's the only zone that you need. So there is no need for HTTP anymore. Yes?
There might be other links out there in the web which are still pointing to HTTP. So isn't it easily done via canonical redirect on the domain side of things from the domain registrar, putting a 401 redirect?
So there might be links on the web to your old site on HTTP, or someone might just get it wrong. Yeah, so you have to ensure that no matter whether someone uses HTTP or HTTPS, they will come to your HTTPS site. And the easiest way to do it is to do it in IIS. So in IIS, there is the URL rewrite module that you can install. And with that, you can have inbound rule that will redirect with a 301, which is permanently moved and which is indexed by search. So that's the right way to do that.
Doesn't Google allow canonical domains when you configure a site for Google to search? Can't you? Isn't there any setting? I think I saw something there where you can say that my site is HTTP and it's consider it as the same site.
I haven't seen it, but might be new. Fair enough. Okay. How are we on time? We have still 20 minutes? There's no question? Yeah, sure.
So how do you stop users when they are entering content from putting something which will break your markup or things? Because do you generally allow them only to enter text content? Or like a SharePoint editor, you can sort of put all kinds of markups?
So the question is, how do you ensure that whenever people put stuff onto page, that is SEO optimized? Training. I would say that's the only way. I mean, in the tools, you can go only that far. Other than that, if someone will not use a heading, they will not use a heading. And you have to educate them that that will help them. Right? That's
Down or something, just more like training, but not locking it down so that they cannot put, say, JavaScript or tables or div tags. Or
well, in a way, rich text editor is or can be locked, and that's exactly what you want to do. It's not really for SEO purposes, but just to have your site consistent.
clean HTML.
So you don't want to allow them to include like inline styles, branding, colors, because that would be just a nightmare, right? Because imagine you would have purple site, and that would change to green. You would have to go through every single page in your site, check like, is it green? No. Is it green? Oh yeah, change it. Right? So, and you can do that. There's a lot of options on the rich text editor that allow you to control. And let me show you how we do that on our site, because we did a thing or two there as well. So whenever we edit a page, here, for example, we disabled the fonts. You cannot change font, right? Because we don't want you to. You cannot change the size because there is no need to, because we do that already in CSS. We also don't allow you to change colors, right? Because we don't want you to. So the only thing you can do is the strong italics, underline, and then styles that are a part of our site. So everything that is there out of the box, we change to only the 4 that we use on our site. So just to narrow it down to make it easy, but also safe. So there are not that many options, and the odds are less that you will do it wrong.
No, that's perfect.
Let me get the back, because that's our live site, so I don't want to change anything that I'm not supposed to. Back to the menu. So, yes?
Trailing slash, do you use that?
Trailing slash, yes. And I guess that's, I'm not really sure if that's IIS or SharePoint, but in our world, let's put it that way, there is no difference between URL that ends with a slash or does not end with a slash. SharePoint thing is exactly the same, and it will serve the contents of that page. On the internet, that's a huge difference. Slash is directory, while no slash is a page or a resource. And that's exactly how internet search sees that. So those are two different things. And it doesn't really punish you for using the one or the other, but you have to pick one. The thing is, there's no way for us to do that out of the box in SharePoint. The good news is, you can do that really easily in IIS. So let me show you how. Let me switch over to my VM. So here, for example, is a page, and if I access it, and if I add a slash at the back, it will just work, right? So, and that's bad, because you have exactly the same page accessible through 2 URLs. So what you want to do is you want to go to IIS, using the web platform installer that's available out of the box. You would install the URL redirect extension. So you would go to here, web platform installer. That's going to spin for a moment. And then you can search for URL rewrite, enter, and you would install this. And when you do, this option here will become available. So that's on the level of an IIS site. And with that, we can do a lot of tricks with URL rewrite. Well, you don't want to do rewrites because we are not allowed to. But URL rewrite, despite its name, is a really powerful tool for SEO, because one of the things that it allows us to do is to append or remove the trailing slash. So it has a template for that rule, and you can just start with empty template, but it has already the 3 most useful ones already in it. So if we pick this, and we say we don't want to append it, we don't want to have slash at the end, so we choose this option, and we choose OK, and it's done. It's that easy. So if we go back to the site, and if we include the slash, and that's going to run a little because that's application pool reset. There you go. There is no slash there. There is no slash. So let me just, in case you can see it, there you go. There is no slash. And if I include a slash, there is no slash, right? So it just works. It just works out of the box in a way. So choose one or the other, and you can use IIS URL rewrite to implement it. Oh, that's a big one. That's a big one. I'm not sure. Yeah, well, so how many of you know what SPA is, single page app? A lot, very good. How many of you would take into account to build your site as a spa? None of you. Let me talk to you a little. So let me unhide some slides that I have prepared particularly for this occasion, because it's just so much easier to explain it. So why on earth would you build a public-facing site as a spa? Anyone?
Well, the question should be, why would you build a website at SPO on SharePoint?
Well, that's a whole different story. I'm available for an hour now, so we can. So a spa, anyone?
I would do it not on the SharePoint platform.
Why?
It's a very easy interface to access and get content right in front of
Okay.
the interface, and it has layers that you can literally give contextual context and easy management, easy navigation as well.
Right, so basically experience, right? Okay, and anything else?
Reduce payload, reduce load times, reduce clicks to content.
Performance, user experience, there you go. So let me show you the spa that I built. You guys nailed it. So let me show you the spa that I built. So this is our site that is not a spa, and that's the site that is spa. Find the difference, right? So it's exactly the same site, and this site is really fast. Because, as you said, the only thing that goes over the wire is raw data. So if you look at that, if we look at the NAT tab, and if we switch, let me just decrease it a little. So let me just go to another page. There are 5 requests, 5K. If I go to blog, it's already cached, so there is no request at all. If I go to this page, there are a few more requests, but if I go back to the roll-up, there is no request. So it's really fast. It's just there. If you go to the regular site, you probably all know how it works. Call, and you just get everything. And then another call, and then you get everything. So that's a way more work. So that's a great idea or great reason to do it. Bless you. Yes, it is. And I'm going to tell you exactly how I did that.
Not using MDS.
No, that's and MDS is a whole different thing. So single page app is JavaScript-based rendering, right? That's the way it works. The content of the page isn't there. So that's the thing I haven't showed you. So if we look at that, yeah, I need to stop the presentation because otherwise you won't see anything. Let me do that quickly. If we go to this page, that's our spa. If we do view source, surprise, surprise, the content isn't there. It's empty, because that's the way a spa works. So if you go to another page, and if you do view source, the content isn't there still. It's just an empty site, because that's the way a spa works. It's all Ajax. It's all magic. So going back to our deck. It's JavaScript based. And as we know, JavaScript is not indexed by internet search. How do you get around that? Well, the great thing is Google saw that was issue. And a while ago, they published a paper about actually a guidance, what you exactly need to do to have your site indexed in internet, or to have your spa site indexed in internet search. So if we take a look at how this works, to prove you that it works, let me go to Google and let me search for anything in this site. So the URL of this site is spa.mavention.com. So site spa.mavention.com, and there you are. We have hits. And there are those funky URLs with the hash and exclamation mark, because that's how a spa works. So there you are. We have hits. It works. So now the hard part. How do you get this to work? This one. Yep. So even though there is your spa, all of that is retrieved by Ajax, right? And internet search cannot index that. So they have to have a way to index the content of your site in a different way, using a regular URL. And they say that the way they want you to make it available is to include this query string parameter that includes the state of your spa. So if you go to blog on our site, which is from the spa point of view, /# exclamation mark blog, you would have exactly the same as _ escaped _ fragment _ equals /blog. And Google expects that in that URL, they will see exactly the same as what we see in the spa. Does that make sense? Okay.
So you make static content available for the bots in that location?
Yes. Basically, you built your site twice. That's the bottom line, because there is no other way to do that. Because that site has to be exactly the same. You want exactly the HTML that is shown to everyone indexed in Google or search. So the recipe is as follows. You build a regular site, just as you would for non-spa site. You build your spa on top of it. You build two sites, as I said. And then you hack your way through support for this parameter. You have to have a module, because you cannot do it. There's no support in context. There's the only way for you to plug into that pipe to request that is to have a module in there. Then, so imagine that at that point we are able to serve the contents, right? But links in our spa site are all /# exclamation mark. Google wants them to be rewritten. So you have to change all of them so that it can crawl all those URLs. So you have to rewrite all URLs in your HTML of your page. Then you have to change canonical URL of your page, because that's physical page, right? You build physical site, so you have to change that as well. And then you have to rewrite URLs in sitemap of your site, because that's built out of the box by search. Search does not know about spa, so it just built all URLs that you have in your site. So for that, you have to ensure that you have a way to change all those URLs. And you could build your XML sitemap for your spa by yourself. But if you would take a look at how much effort does it take to build it the right way for a site, you would be scared. So to build it by yourself is not really an easy thing to do. Tip, if you do that, you can use a separate device channel to avoid that you will do all of those steps, so the rewrite on every call, because that's overhead, that's performance hit. So you only want to do that when it's search on your site, otherwise not. So let me show you a few of those things that I have built, the way it works. So here I built a kit that is not publicly available just yet. I still haven't made up my mind whether I want to make it available or not. It just works. So here is the module that basically checks if the escape fragment parameter is there. And if it's there, is going to post-process the whole page, and it's going to do stuff, and it's going to redirect, it's going to set the channel to search, right? So that was the last tip. Another thing that we had to do is rewrite URLs in a page. So for this, I created a code behind for the master page that I can use to attach adapter to the whole page. So just a regular ASP.NET page adapter. And with that, I have the access to the whole page HTML, and I can rewrite using regex all URLs. Then I have timer job that runs 2 minutes or 3 minutes after the standard out-of-the-box XML sitemap job, and that rewrites the URLs. That's just an easy hack. So with that job, I ensure that it's planned right after the job that's available out of the box. And here I use regex to get the files and to rewrite the contents, to change the links, to make them look like spa. So with that, what you will get if you would request the XML sitemap for the site, so you would go to http spa.mavention.com and you would go to sitemap.o.xml. You will get an XML file, and if you open that file, you will get there you go, you will get SPA URLs. They are there. So that's the result of the job that runs after this is built every night. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It's a lot of work to figure this out to get this to work, basically because it's just one big hack. So with that, what? Yeah, we have 3 minutes. I'm not sure if we could do another one. It depends on you. Which one do you pick? Anyone? Last choice. Cross-site publishing SEO, yeah. So cross-site publishing is the new thing in SharePoint 2013 that allows you to have catalog and then publish it to another site. And the way you do that is for every item that you send over, you have to have like ID that is used in the URL. And for a product that might be SKU, number, or anything. But what you really want to do from SEO point of view is to include there a meaningful full URL. So here, where was the, yeah, here was the authoring site. What we did is we added a field called slug, because that's the way it seems to be called, and that's the meaningful title or ID of this page for search. So even though you might have a product with a SKU, you might want to include a URL that will pop up whenever someone searches for a product or item. Right? So if you would have shoes and there would be red and there would be a brand, you might include that in URL rather than 1, 2, AB, 5, or like a GUID, right? Another thing that you can do is that there are a number of fields available out of the box for SEO. So for every page that you are editing, you can set title, meta description, keywords, following, so you can include those fields in your product catalog as well. The thing is, out of the box, they are hidden. They are not showing up in the new and edit forms. Why? Because depending on whether you have managed nav or structural nav, they are either being saved in the field of the page or in the term. So based on those, so that's why they have separate UI. And if you want, you can unseal those fields because they are sealed. So you can unseal them, make them appear in a new and edit form, seal them, and then you can use them in your catalog. So that's the easiest way to add SEO stuff to your catalog. And the best part is, because those fields are already mapped to the managed properties in search, they will appear in your site. So there is no additional work for you in there. We're on time, and I have to move move out from the stage because there's another session starting now. I'm pretty sure that with everything that we have talked about, you will build awesome sites. Thank you, guys.